Well, welcome back to Thought for the Day. It is the 11th of May, and as you know, I took yesterday off as well. But we continue our journey on looking at the mystical life and the Franciscan understanding of that. And we're going to use a threefold understanding of the mystical way, or how to enter into it. Or even more about how to enter into it, but the sort of shape it universally sort of takes. And this is identified in St. Bonaventure's life of St. Francis as well. And that sort of three-stage entering into a mystical way of life includes three stages which are less sort of distinct stages and more often merge into each other. As Brother Ramon says, it's less like taking steps and it's more like this way can often be more like a slope. But those three stages are purgation, illumination, and union. And we can see these at work in the life of St. Francis right from the off. The purgation stage, as Brother Ramon puts it, purgation is the process which begins when the soul realizes the need of God, and often accompanied by world weariness and disillusion. It involves repentance and purification from sin, leading to the all-positive blessing of the gospel. So it has that type of feel about it. You know, the way that St. Francis gave us was, he didn't really set out a systematic way to get to God, or a didactic approach. He was much more intuitive than that, and spontaneous, as we've seen in other sections of this series. And he wanted to live out the grace of God and the energies of the Spirit. But even though he had a much more intuitive approach than some of the other saints that you may draw inspiration from, he was quite clearly nonetheless disciplined and orthodox in his approach. So today we're going to have a look at that first stage, purgation. And as we said, purgation is that time when you realize that you need to have God. There's a real need in your life for God. All the illusions of this world, that this world can offer you something of deep worth and value that's going to sustain you and fulfill you, becomes open to you to see that it can't deliver that the things of this world are temporary at best and facile at worst. So Francis experienced this purgation when he went off with these grand ideas of winning fame and fortune and climbing the social ladder from the merchant class, hopefully into the minor nobility, when he went off to war, dressed up in his fantastic new armor and fantastic horse, looking the part. And then he got captured and spent an extended period of time in a dungeon without any daylight or view. And it was at that moment that he understood that these aspirations of worldly advancement, of progression through and joining in the rat race, as we call it, were non-substantive. You could have all of that and still, as Jesus say, lose your life. You can gain the whole world but lose your life. What Francis found at that moment was a deep need for God and his heart was open and receptive to hearing from God. And right through that process of purgation, you can see that gradually, more and more, Francis was able to let go of those old preconceptions he had. Things like his disgust and repulsion of lepers, where he was able to embrace them and see them for the people they were, not their disease. To be able to kiss the leper on in order to embrace and to fully accept someone he had considered disgusting and unworthy of his attention in the past. Right through to that moment where he literally strips himself naked and in front of his father and the bishop of Assisi and a big crowd, no doubt, and he completely denounces the materialistic and ego-driven world of his father and the merchant classes and that whole capitalist society of his day. And he walks away to embrace Lady Poverty in its fullness in order to identify with those at the bottom of society, those for whom society rejects. That was his purgation. And the reality is that if we want to go deeper into anything in life, this is the pattern we follow. We first have to strip ourselves of our old mindset, or allow ourselves to be stripped of that mindset, in order to open ourselves to a new mindset. The old mindset needs to die, which is really what metanoia in the New Testament talks about, often translated as repentance, but metanoia means a transformation of mind and heart, that your mind and heart are transformed from the old into a new way of understanding the world. And we see that clearly in those early stages of Francis's journey into becoming and starting the Franciscan order. This purging of the old in order to have room and space to accept the new and the greater reality of God. And we don't have to go off into a desert place like some of the early church fathers did and mothers did in the desert tradition or anywhere like that. As we can see with Francis, God meets us where we're at and where we are. And today we live in a society that is completely media driven. Ironically, I'm speaking to you via YouTube on this video, which is a media thing, but media itself isn't the issue. It's the fact that actually our society, our capitalist and materialistic society and consumerist society, is constantly pushing on all of us, every one of us, images of consumption. In order to be happy, you need such and such. In order to have a fulfilled life, you need to have this and this and this, and then you will find fulfillment. And we all need to go through our purgation, where we realize that all of that is actually an illusion. It's not real. It doesn't hold any real value at all. And we need to find that actually we live in a society, particularly in the West, where our particular lifestyle and illusions of that we need all these things actually come at the detriment of many and the oppression of many across the world. So we need to, as a society, enter into a purgation as well. And the Franciscan way of seeing the world, the Christians, the Franciscan spirituality, which is primarily, if anything, you can say about it, is a way of living a Christ-like life, is about purging ourselves from those those illusions that our society continues to try and tell us we need and what to do. And the Franciscan way, hopefully, is a counter voice in and a counterpoint in that economy of ideas, to show that actually we don't need those things. Actually, our treasures need to be stored in heaven, not here on earth. And yes, it's not a matter of we don't have material things. Of course we do. But it influences our whole politics and understanding of the world in order to favor those on the margins, so that when we purchase anything or enter into any type of system, we wonder, well, and we consider the impact it has on the least in the society, not the greatest, or even ourselves, because we often live in a privileged position. So that's the purgation. Tomorrow we're going to have an illumination, and then finally we'll look at union, and we'll see how that pans out in Francis's life and how that can be in our lives as well.